Welcome to Harmony Talk, a podcast where we meet dreamers and doers who share their inspiring stories. Here, people from all walks of life tell us about the moment they knew there was no turning back. This podcast is sponsored by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business started in 1920. I'm your host, Todd Stevens. More than 70% of Americans utilize some form of social media, a global phenomenon virtually unheard of until 20 years ago. The evolution of various popular platforms has augmented and, in some cases, even replaced how we get our news, entertainment, and communicate with others. Social media is driven by user content, making household names of many after experiencing their viral moment. My guest today is a globally recognized foodie and shares her unique experiences for all to see. She has amassed over 3.5 million followers on TikTok, more than 200,000 on Instagram, 80,000 on YouTube, dozens of thousands more on other platforms. Her followers call her content, and I quote, a guilty pleasure, unadulterated fun, and note her as the most positive, cheerful soul on this planet. Gabby Eniclerico, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
3.5 million followers. That is an astonishing number that I don't think many of us can fathom.
It is so hard to even comprehend that, honestly. It's such a big number.
You know, Gabby, it's a pleasure talking to you today. I've seen so much of your content on social media, and social media has really taken over our world of communication, journalism, entertainment, education, popular culture. I could go on and on. How did your journey begin as a social media personality?
I've always enjoyed watching people eat, but it started during COVID. I was quarantining a lot, and I would watch other people eat because it made me feel like I wasn't eating dinner alone, which does sound very sad when you think about it, but it is more of a positive thing. And I kind of wanted to impart that joy that it gave me onto others. So I started doing it myself, and it seemed to pick up.
Right. And for our listeners, Gabby's specialty is food. It's dining, eating food, and posting that content online. And the food you eat, Gabby, I have to say, it's not like, you're just eating burgers and dogs or fast food all the time. You've got a very wide palette, I'd say. Cultural influences come out in your content. Where does that come from? Have you always had an interest in food?
So I've always had an interest in food. Growing up, that basically was how my family showed love. We were always eating large amounts of food, but I didn't start eating different kinds of food until after college. In fact, starting this social media following made me more inclined to try different cuisines because I met a ton of my followers from all different parts of the world, and it led me to try so many different cuisines that I've never tried before. So I've always been interested in food, and it's cool that I get to even expand that interest to so many other cuisines.
Well, yes. And I noticed that when you do expand that palette, if you will, to other cuisines, you have, like we said before, the followers. I mean, the number of likes you get, 300,000 likes for some of your posts, 5,000 comments on your dining experiences. I mean, these are just staggering numbers. Has this always been a dream of you to kind of be in the public spotlight as a young girl growing up?
So I didn't know if it was going to be social media per se, but I have always been a lover of being on camera. Growing up, I was always shoving the camera into my family's faces, and I would always film myself dancing and forcing my family members to watch it. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So I definitely always wanted to make people laugh in some way or another, and it looks like it just took the form of social media.
Now, going through college, as you mentioned, did you go to school for the performing arts or did you have other plans?
So I wanted to be a lawyer at first. I actually wanted to be a ton of different things. I wanted to be an FBI agent, a prison warden at one point, which what? But I ultimately decided that I did want to be a lawyer. And I was working in a law firm actually before doing social media full time. And I was just sitting in my office realizing that eating on camera is a lot more fun than reading legal briefs.
Sure, I can only imagine. So while you're with the law firm, does it click for you at some point? At what point did you realize I can actually make a living at this?
So it definitely was last year. I was sitting at my desk and I had just gotten money from doing a brand deal with a brand. and it was much more money than I would anticipate getting. And I was like, okay, the money in this is actually good. Is it the most consistent thing? No, but I felt like I wasn't totally happy at my full time job. And if I didn't make the change then and there, then I feel like I was going to be at the law firm for 3 more years doing the same thing. So I decided to really just put all of my energy into social media. And when you put a ton of your energy into something, it makes for more content, which also gives you a bigger profit. So it's been a year doing this full time now, and it's been great. I've been so happy doing it. And I feel like I finally found something that I really want to do with my life.
That's interesting because I think a lot of people who follow people on social media don't necessarily think about the monetary aspect of things. And you can actually make a living as a social media personality, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. It's so bizarre. I mean, I was talking to my dad and he was like, I just saw a man working at this gas station and you're making all this money from filming yourself eating Chipotle. And I'm like, I don't get it either, but it's kind of a weird thing to think about. But it does make sense when you think about sometimes how much people will pay for like a billboard in Times Square. And now that social media is so popular amongst everyone, it makes sense to kind of turn that marketing into paying influencers. I'm grateful for that. But
Well, sure.
it is kind of a weird concept.
And I mentioned earlier that so many people get their news, get their entertainment, get their information from social media. It makes sense for a lot of these companies to focus more of their dollars toward online activities, social media, influencers, et cetera, because they have an engaged consumer on the other end, right? It's not just the TV running in the background or the radio as you're driving down the road. You have targeted consumer interaction, which is really interesting.
Oh, definitely. Commercials that are on during your favorite TV show that you're not even really watching.
Right. You mentioned putting your time and effort and energy into things. One of your followers referenced the energy that you portray in your content. I wanted to ask you that energy and that personality, which I've seen comes through so genuine in your content. Is that who you really are? Or is there another Gabby when the camera gets turned off?
I would say that is exactly how I am in real life. It's funny. Sometimes I'll meet people that watch my videos and they'll always say, wow, you are the same exact person that you are online. And I think that's so important when you're an online persona because it shows that you stay true to yourself and you just have to be yourself no matter what. And I feel like having the same image as you do online in real life is such an important thing to show your followers.
So what we see when we're talking to Gabby today or when we're following Gabby online, that's you.
Yes, that's me.
But when you put yourself out there like that, you're really giving people a glimpse into what your life is really like. And I think that's fascinating to people. And you have so much positive feedback, but there are always the haters. And that's one thing that we hear a lot about today is the impact of social media on young people. How do you deal with the negative feedback you get online? And has that shaped you in any way?
So the hate has definitely made me a way more confident person, I would say. And you just have to have like a little positive spin on the hate that you get online. For example, you just have to tell yourself that these people have nothing else to do in their day. And the 1 ounce of joy that they get is when they hate on you on your video. It's almost like you're welcome. You know what I mean? You're giving them happiness in their day and they're giving you more engagement by commenting on your stuff. So it kind of helps to put a more positive spin on it that, they're just hating because they have nothing better to do. And it's filling my pockets. So I should be thanking them, really.
So you're saying that the haters, if you will, have actually boosted your confidence.
Oh, definitely. I used to care so much about what people thought of me because anyone can make any assumptions about you from a 30-second video. And that used to bother me so much. If I said one little thing wrong, people would take it an extremely different way. It would bother me because I'm like, oh, no, people are judging my character because I said this wrong. But after a while, you just realize that you can't please everyone and everyone's going to make assumptions based on a 30-second video. You just can't let it get to you.
And that's a great thing for people to hear, I think, if they're just, regular social media users because of that impact of mental health that we hear about so much. Do you have any advice for young people out there on social media that receive that type of feedback when they're posting content?
My advice would be to put your phone down, honestly, because the first thing is reading all those comments can't be good for you. Sometimes I won't even read my comments just as a way to remove yourself from that negativity. So definitely put your phone down. Don't read all the comments if it really gets to you. And I honestly think that time is what helps. So I would recommend to just not read your comments until you are more established as a content creator and in the content that you're making.
That's great advice and so important for especially young people to hear. Put the phone down. Do you live on your phone? Is it with you all the time?
I hate to say this, but it is my life. I always will tell my friends, I'm like, my screen time was so high, but technically it's research, but no, not actually. It
You're working, right?
exactly. But I do try at sometimes to put the phone down and find the other things that give me joy rather than scrolling through TikTok for hours.
Sure. Do you worry about the impact that social media has on young people? I assume in your family you have some younger relatives. Do you think about the impact that social media has on children?
I do. It almost makes me feel grateful that when I was growing up, we didn't have this because everyone, especially young kids, will always be comparing themselves to others. And that's just so toxic for a young child to look at if they're on Instagram and they're 9 years old, looking at people that are 30 years old, wanting to look like them. That's just not right. And personally, I don't think anyone below the age of 18 should have social media because our brains are still developing. I feel like my brain is still developing. So I can't even imagine what a 15-year-old is thinking being on TikTok. And I just think it's so toxic for them to be on it. So they should definitely put the phone down, spend more time outside. I know it's easier said than done.
Speaking of that, your content isn't strictly food. You travel quite a great deal. You share pictures of you, enjoying other activities. You always seem so fresh and body positive as well. Where does that confidence come from?
So the body positivity, I would say, comes from my family because my family is very food centric. We didn't even really have time to be self conscious about our bodies because my grandma was throwing pasta and carbs in our face all at once. But that was a healthy way of connecting with food. And food always brought my family together for big events, holidays. So it kind of was more of a positive force in my life than a negative one. It's how I showed love. Everyone would come over and my grandma would be like, "Eat, you're so skinny." She was always encouraging other people to eat. And I was an active kid as well. So that helped for sure with all the eating.
And when your job is to eat, you're paid to eat, you have to stay in shape also. And your message surely isn't, go out and eat beyond control. You must certainly be focused on a balance in your life, I assume.
Definitely. You can eat what you want and still be healthy all at the same time.
I've seen Stairmasters in your videos in the past as well. Fitness is important to you as well?
Yes, yes, I do love gaining muscle. And people always ask, how do you gain muscle on this part of your body? And really, the answer is to eat a lot because that really helps you grow all that muscle. It's to eat. You need to support all of the muscle growth that you're doing.
And you mentioned your family a lot, your grandmother. How much influence did your family have on you growing up to create your personality, if you will, and help you become who you are?
Yes. Oh my gosh. They are my biggest influences. Specifically, I would say my mom and my grandma. My grandma was such a good cook. She is really what made me become interested in food. I just wish I was a better chef, but I'm still learning.
Sure.
And my mom actually was always holding a camera in her hand growing up. She would always stick the camera in my dad's face. He'd be like, "Maria, enough of this camera. Get it out of my face." And he does the same thing to me. So I definitely think I got that bit of her need to film everything. And that definitely influenced me to film my life, what goes on, because it helps hold memories. And I really do enjoy that. It's like sometimes looking at my TikTok, it's kind of like a journal. I'm like, oh, I was eating that like a few months ago and I was in Rome. It's so just interesting.
It's a fascinating life. And I understand your mom passed away early, unfortunately.
Yeah, she did. I was 11, so it was pretty young. But luckily, I did have older sisters, and a great support system.
Do you see your mother sometimes in the video content you create?
Oh, definitely. She was such a positive person, always looking for the best in people. And she loved to cook and she loved food and she loved to film. I would say me and her were the only two in our family that loved filming our family, loved filming ourselves. And luckily, a lot of my family will reach out to me being like, "Oh, do you have pictures from this event?" And I always will because taking videos holds memories. So I'm really glad that she gave me that part of her. So I see my TikTok kind of reminds me of her because I'm sharing her love for filming.
That's terrific. And do you remember any advice that she gave you as a young child growing up? The key things that she said, Gabby, make sure?
She always told me, make sure you never let anyone ruin your day. You are the own ruiner of your day. Don't let anyone else influence your day in any way. And that always kind of helped me in school growing up, but also now, because if you look at one negative comment, you want to spiral and think about it, but you just think, wait, I am the own ruiner of my day, not this person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's wonderful advice. I think we're all responsible for our own feelings. I think lots of people need to hear that message, and it's a blessing your mother gave that to you at such a young age.
Yes.
You're still a young person by all measures, but if you could go back in time to those younger days, what advice would you give yourself now that you're sitting in the social media spotlight, so to speak?
I would tell myself not to be afraid to do something that I really want to do. I think that I really wanted to be a lawyer at one point because I thought it's what I wanted to do because everybody says there's no money in like entertainment unless you're really good at it. And I think that had I just gone towards that in the beginning, I think I could have started this career path a little earlier. But I think that everything happens for a reason. And the steps I took until this moment kind of made me who I am today. So I am grateful for that. But I also would say stop caring about what everyone thinks. It does not matter. It's not that deep. Nobody actually cares that much about you. They're all living their own lives. Because I think I had trouble with that growing up. I was always wondering if I said something wrong to somebody or I was comparing myself to people, and comparison is the thief of joy.
Ah, that's very wise. Very wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that little girl growing up in New Jersey, those dreams that you had, you were on camera, you were making videos of yourself. So, what were your dreams as a young child?
I really just wanted to make people laugh. I think I really wanted to go into comedy, maybe like SNL, something like that. I just wanted to put a smile on people's faces. That's why even when I worked as a hostess, I loved it because I loved greeting people, making them smile. So I think that I knew I wanted to make people smile or interact with people in some way. That's why when I was just working at a law firm, I was at my desk and I was like always going around the office trying to talk to people because I wanted to interact.
Oh, that's great. And now you're realizing part of that dream anyway. But you mentioned something like SNL. When you look out 10, 20 years down the road, or even five, because things happen so quickly these days, what does the future look like for you? Are you still online as a social media personality? Are you on SNL? Are you in the entertainment industry? What's the future dreams and ambitions for Gabby?
So still just on social media, but a huge dream of mine would be to go on SNL and maybe be like a talk show host of like a food show. I feel like maybe like a cooking show, or maybe I should be on Worst Cooks in America because I feel like a lot of my content are cooking fails. So I feel like that could make for a funny little cameo.
Well, we should tell our listeners too that you went viral a few years ago. I think it was crab rangoons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, crab rangoons.
And that video went viral. Mainstream media picked that up. NBC Today, you sure got a lot of coverage for that. Can you help some of us who aren't as social media savvy better understand what makes a viral video? Like, why do some things catch on and why do most things not?
I think the main thing that helps a video go viral is doing something that you know is going to annoy someone. For example, with the crab rangoon, I'll dip the bottom of the Rangoon in the sauce, but then I'll bite it from the side. Everyone gets annoyed because they're like, why wouldn't you bite the part that you dipped? So I kind of do that knowing people will get annoyed at it. It's like when you have a cake and you stick the fork right in the middle of the cake. Everyone gets so annoyed, up in arms, and it's like, well, thanks for giving me all these views. I think that just pushing like the normal boundaries or just being out there definitely will help a video go viral.
Oh, nice. Okay. So now we have the inside track on your videos. I know a lot of people comment on your videos when you're eating certain international foods, whether you're eating it properly, not eating it properly, pronouncing the names of the foods properly. You currently live in Washington, D.C. How's the food scene in Washington, D.C.?
Ah, I love it. My favorite thing about the food scene here is that it's a big international food city. So you can get Filipino food, African food, such good Indian food is here. You can try all these different kinds of cuisines. And in New Jersey, we had Italian food. No, we actually did have a lot of different kinds of food in New Jersey, but I really only ate Italian food. Or some people from like Missouri will be like, I don't have any Nigerian food here. So I'm very grateful that I live in a city where I have that access to all that different kind of food because it's delicious.
Absolutely. DC, definitely a city well known for its international cuisine. The interesting thing I always like to ask guests too is, what do you do when you're not creating? In other words, what do you do for downtime? When you do put the phone down, what are some of your interests?
I love to dance. I just love putting on my favorite playlist, and dancing helps me get all my energy out. But also, I love to exercise, whether it's going on a long walk, going to the gym. I love it. I think it definitely helps me be a healthier individual. And again, it helps me get out a lot of my energy. I also enjoy reading.
Oh, very nice. Very good. I'm sure, you mentioned your mom earlier. Have you had other mentors as you've come through the process, not only growing up in New Jersey, going to school in Washington, D.C., working in the legal field for some time? Have there people that have really kind of led you down the right path?
So I have a lot of friends that are also social media influencers. And I think connecting with them has definitely helped me get on a good path just because they've been doing this a lot longer than me, some of the people that I know. And it helps me to reach out to them if I have questions. And it's just nice to talk to people that are in the same space as you. And I think having those relationships have made me be a better creator, but also just like past influences. This one woman, Trisha Paytas, she would always film herself having breakdowns, crying while eating on her floor. And while I did feel bad for her because she was going through a really rough time, I am grateful that she put that on the internet because it made me feel like it was okay to be fully yourself on camera. And sometimes I feel like I'm afraid to show sadness because I'm such an overly positive person. So watching this woman combine my love for food and breaking down crying made me think, oh, you can eat and show that you can be sad sometimes. So I think she definitely helped me be myself more on camera.
Oh, that's great. And, those different emotions, you're so positive all the time. I'm sure there must be things that get you down from time to time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If I see an old man eating alone, I'll cry. I'll cry.
Oh, no kidding. That's sweet. And, we talk about the influence of social media personalities like yourself, and with the millions of followers that we've already talked about, do you get recognized when you go out? When you're traveling, do people say, hey, I know you from somewhere?
Yeah, I do. And it's kind of crazy because it happens so randomly. Like, I was in Italy this one time and this older, like burly man from Malta was like, I love your videos. And I was like, oh, hello. Like, you watch my videos. You just never know who's watching because when you think of 3 million people, it's so hard to just comprehend that. So, seeing it in person is just so funny. It's all different kinds of people. And I love meeting new people. I'm a huge extrovert. So that's been my favorite part of this whole experience, honestly.
So you're getting celebrity even in foreign countries.
That's true. That's true. Except some of them they won't even know my name. They'll just like say the viral video that they saw. Like they'll just say crab rangoons. And I'm like, that's me.
Yep, I'm
A
the
crab
crab rangoon
rangoon.
girl. Well, that's all comes to an important part of what you do, which is branding. You're really branding yourself. When you think about the future, you mentioned working with, companies, getting sponsorships, marketing deals. How much of your time and effort when the camera is off goes into that? We talk about this as your full-time job. And I think some people look at social media and think, oh, turn the camera on and do what they do and turn the camera off. And that's easy way to make a living. But there must be a tremendous amount of time and effort that goes into the business side of what you do.
Oh, definitely. Luckily, I do have a manager and she helps me out with that stuff because there's so much of it and it's hard to control all of that. So, but there is a lot that goes into it with the business side of things and constantly communicating with people, creating relationships with different brands. And also, it's just editing. Editing does take a while. I feel like you don't realize just from like a small, like 30-second TikTok, how long it actually takes to edit. And then your eyes start hurting. So there is definitely a lot that goes into it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, just editing alone, various clips and things like that can be challenging for the casual user anyway, and you're doing it professionally, so it's got to be good.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. Staying on social media for a moment, there is so much talk, especially in this country right now, about limiting access to social media, breaking up, more heavily regulating certain social media outlets. Where do you stand on that? What's your view on how social media is regulated and viewed in this country?
So it's very scary to me to hear that TikTok might go away. But I do think that there should be some censorship on TikTok and other social media apps, especially when you have younger kids on these social media apps. You need censorship. One time I was in this store and this little girl was watching this video that she definitely shouldn't have. And I thought, why doesn't TikTok censor this? So I think that instead of banning it, they maybe should first try to have some of those protections in place where kids won't allow to be seeing videos they shouldn't. So I think that is definitely what should come of this rather than banning it. But I'm just saying that selfishly because I depend on it for a living.
Well, sure. And in some sense, you must worry about that as far as the potential of continuing to be compensated for the content that you produce.
Oh, definitely. Especially, I always say kids shouldn't be on social media, but there are children that watch my videos and it gives me income. But I definitely think I will be okay not having that younger audience if it means that they won't see videos that they shouldn't on TikTok and Instagram because it's so easy for young kids to get influenced. And I think that a main reason I am so confident and have such a good sense of self is because I didn't have all of these social media apps where I was constantly comparing myself to other people I didn't even know. So I think that definitely needs to stop. And it's unfortunate that I might lose some money, but I'm okay with that.
So you're willing to give some up for the greater good.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like my nephews, I'm blocking them the second that they get social media. I'm like, absolutely not.
And that's so important to hear from somebody who actually creates content and really depends on it. You have a tremendous conscience about what people see.
It is kind of just crazy watching younger people. I was watching this video of this girl doing a get ready with me, and I was like, oh my God, she's acting like she's in her 20s. This girl is like 10 years old. When we were 10, I was dancing, I had braces, and I just had iMovie. I didn't have anything to post it on. So I think that is what we should go back to.
It's a great thought, that's for sure. Do you have any advice for parents, particularly who may not even know how to work the phone? I mean, let's face it, some of these apps are so complicated at this point. Logins, when you give the child the phone, oftentimes for convenience purposes, hey, I need a ride from practice. Hey, my play practice is over. I'm ready to be picked up, or I'm at a friend's house, or I might be in a dangerous situation. Please come get me. There's real value to having a device in your hand. But, these various apps that, like you said, can expose, our kids to things that perhaps they're shouldn't be ready to see. Do you have any advice for those folks? Because I've raised two young boys, and I know there's lots of people listening who are raising children, as a social media influencer with millions of followers. What's your advice to those people?
I think maybe if they do allow their kids to have social media, to share the account with them and have your kid give them access to your login and password, just to make sure that they're not watching anything they shouldn't. Or if you don't want your kid to know that, because let's be honest, the child probably isn't going to like that idea, just make sure that you are censoring your YouTube. They have options for that. And maybe just talk to them about the dangers of social media and the comparisons that happen there. I think having open conversations with your kids about it can definitely help them feel more comfortable coming to you if they have a problem with something that they're seeing online, because if you don't have that open communication, they could just be comparing themselves to other people online and keeping that to themselves. And that's just very toxic. So having that open conversation with them about it, I think, is the best thing to do.
Great advice. And I know a lot of people out there appreciate hearing that. And hopefully they can listen with their children. So their children are hearing from a social media expert that that's their best interest. One can hope, Gabby, one can hope.
I know, right? I would say just don't let your kid have social media, but that's so much easier said than done.
It sure is, especially when all their friends have it and they're talking about it at school. It's a challenge no matter what. Where can folks find you? Can you give us your social tags on your various platforms so that some of our listeners can perhaps become more of your 3.5 plus million viewers right now and sharing your positive experiences, everything from food to culture to travel?
Hey, yes. So you can find me on TikTok at slothgirl, 2 underscores. On Instagram, you can find me at Gabby Eniclerico. I should probably change that and make it a lot easier because my last name is a mouthful. On YouTube, you can find me at slothgirl, also 2 underscores.
Okay, very good. If we had another half an hour, I'd ask you, where the tags come from. What's behind that sloth girl?
Well, really, I am a girl and I love sloths. When I was coming up with a username, I was like, Gabby Eniclerico was already taken, which is really funny because I wasn't even big at that point. I'm like, who exists with my name? So yeah, I just made it Sloth Girl. I love sloths. There's looking at right now, a sloth stuffed animal on my bed. I have 3, so big fan of them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, well, now we know. All right. I didn't want to leave everyone hanging. I didn't want to get negative feedback, Abby, on my podcast here. That
yes, I
didn't fill us in. Well, that's great. Well, Gabby, it's been absolutely wonderful having you today on Harmony Talk podcast. We've been talking with Gabby Eniclerico, social media personality and online content creator, dreaming, doing, and shining some light and positivity. Ever comfortable and confident in her own skin, you can find her sharing her food and cultural experiences on various social media platforms and perhaps inspire you to create some content of your own. Gabby, it's been a delight having you on the program today.
It's been so great being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, and best of luck in all your future endeavors. This is Harmony Talk Podcast, presented by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business started in 1920. I'm Todd Stevens. For everyone out there, keep dreaming and doing.